I'm 5 months into losing my sister to cancer. She died aged 42 of bowel cancer, about 18 months after her diagnosis. So I wanted to chat about grief because I know that the immediate grief was a time when me personally, I wanted to just immerse myself in it and get as much information and feel like I wasn't alone. And there was a load of stuff that I watched and found helpful and listened to, and I'll link all of that below as well because there are some great things out there. I also know that it's just so, not keen on the word triggering, but there's just so many things that people say and they say all the wrong things. So I'm sorry in advance if I say anything that is upsetting or it doesn't match your experience. I can only really talk from mine, and like any massive topic like this is literally life and death. It's very, 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 very personal and very, very different. Like each person's an individual, and I lost a sister is very different from other people you can lose. Even the fact that she was my only sister and she was my best friend and we worked together, we were just, particularly our lives were very entwined. So grief, everyone always just says it's a roller coaster, take your time, and sometimes you're kind of like, oh, these 5 stages or 7 stages of grief, and I kind of wanted to understand it because then I just felt like I wouldn't feel like I was totally losing my mind. And I think that my situation as well was that because I live 3 hours away from my parents and her husband and kids, I kind of also felt like they were all living this grief together. And I was the only person grieving as heavily. Obviously my husband and children have grieved a lot for my sister, but for me it was much bigger. So I was sort of in an environment as well where sometimes I felt like I was the only one grieving, which was probably a luxury in terms of that I got support, but also was tough in terms of just feeling like you were swallowing it sometimes. So I'm going to talk about anticipatory grief, I'm going to talk about immediate grief, and I'm going to talk about living with grief, because I think that for me those are like the 3 things that I'm doing that I've gone through, and I think hopefully it will help somebody out there. And if you're watching this, sending my love. I'm not going to do a whole whizzy titly thing, I'm just going to chat. So anticipatory grief, if you're losing somebody and you know that they have a life-threatening illness, like my sister's cancer was stage 4, it could be Alzheimer's, many other things. There is this huge thing called anticipatory grief, and means that you can be literally in this grieving process for many years, and I definitely was. And for me, like symptomatically, that was like panic attacks, waking up in the middle of the night unable to breathe and panicking. That was like a massive want to escape from any of my day-to-day, like literally just wanting to open the door and run and just be away and just be alone, because I had so much in my head but I couldn't process the thoughts. And it took me, I did have like a real breakdown at one point just before we knew it was all going to shift and we knew we were really shifting into end of life. I literally was like, I can't, and I was struggling so much and I didn't know, is this anticipatory grief, is this just depression, like what can I do to help myself? And I had no answers to that. So I basically just said to my husband, I'm going away by myself, and I just went away alone for a night at like this sort of retreat place where you do yoga and all that sort of stuff. And I literally just stayed in that room, I did the yoga and bits, and then I just cried hysterically. And then I did this like quiz that was like, do you need support with your mental health? And it was like, you're an urgent case, like you need to go now, because you do have these really dark thoughts, and you don't know how you're going to do it, and you don't know. And so hopefully you'll see me, if you're in that stage, I am the other side, and you can do it, and you can do it with, but there are some things you can do to help with that. Number 1 is really leaning into it, and really basically, I think sometimes what I noticed was some people withdraw from that person and can't cope with it, and so they'll remove themselves from it or detach, which is a totally healthy thing to do, I'm sure. But for me it was the opposite, and I just went totally into it, spent as much time as I could with my sister. We talked about end of life, we talked about her girls, we talked about the funeral, we planned the funeral, we talked about the hospice, we talked about everything. We talked about what she would want me to do after, what she imagined for the children, and those were harder conversations than actually planning the funeral and doing it. It was harder to sit and talk about it, but I basically did it in a way that she would say things to me and I would say, to make it easy for me, I say, yes, and if my funeral, I would like this, you know. So I tried to make it like a two-way conversation, even though obviously it was her, but it helped to kind of just make it a less confrontational discussion for both of us. That sounds like I was trying to put myself in a situation, but I wasn't. It was just like a easier way of dealing with the conversation, is almost making it hypothetical. So we did all of that, and I found that massively helpful when I did end up with that huge overwhelm. Everyone in my family went into massive overwhelm when she died, because she did die sooner than we expected. Whereas I think because I'd had such a preparation with my sister, and my sister was the same with everyone, she prepared us all so well, that it really helped me. So if you can manage it, to have the conversations now and talk emotionally, talk yourself through it with that person, it will make your life a lot easier when you're all these huge decisions, when you feel at a time when you're most crumbling. And then really educate yourself as well, like, so knowing what to expect medically, knowing what to expect physically. Like I was like, what are the signs? And I saw something on TikTok of all places, when you're trying to find stuff, it's impossible to find information, and it was like signs of early signs of death, basically, that somebody's going to die, like what's going to happen, like physically, like what are the signs to look out for. So obviously that's different for everybody, because I don't know what your loved one or you are going through, but once you educate yourself on those signs, you know, I guess for us right at the end, it was definitely a confusion, hallucinations, not horrible ones, no one was unhappy or frightened, but a sort of a losing bit of more touch with reality. So just prepare yourselves for your situation. Like, I don't know what your signs will be, but the best thing to do is ask your medical practitioner or their nurse or their Macmillan nurse, like, what are the signs I'm looking out for that are real indicators that we're moving into end of life? And then it helps you to feel a little bit less, because it's really hard to see your loved one in pain, or struggling to breathe, or losing themselves, the grip of their mind. But once you understand like the cycle that they're going through, it's really our job then is just to support them through it and be there and show them that care and love, because you know, that is your opportunity then to leave no regrets. And I think that's a really big thing that I would say, is to leave no regrets, leave nothing unsaid, literally nothing. And we lived our life like that, with like, we kept saying no regrets, no regrets. Another thing in anticipatory grief is to do nice things, like plan things. So we were still planning stuff, like my sister had booked things for like way into the future, literally booked like houses and stuff for us to go and stay in and things, and we've managed to then do that even though she passed. But it helped her too. And I know there's like a bit of a joke about, like, it's not a joke, but a bit of a, you know, why are you doing that when it doesn't seem to be reality? But some of it was real, and we did actualize a lot of lovely things for ourselves. Like, she did go down to Cornwall and had this night overlooking the sea, and we managed to make all these things happen. And it was just really nice to know that we scaled those things right down. So we were like, in the hospice, it was very much, what do you want to achieve today? And it might be going in my wheelchair to the cafe, and I want to sit there, I want to sit in the sunshine and have a coffee. So it was always very realistic. And my sister was particularly realistic. Like, some of the things she said, I think even the staff were like, that's like, you can aim bigger than that. But having a lovely bath today, and we just always made sure that we knew something good that we could do, and that really helped with that anticipatory feeling of grief, because you were living so in the moment. And as you would know, like, you start to live so in the moment. And work on your own strength. Like, I found that time when I had that breakdown was a time for me to really retreat and work on my own strength, because I didn't have any left, and I knew I was needing to go into battle for the last bit, is how I felt. And I needed resilience for that. So it doesn't all have to be on your shoulders. Like, when my gran died, we had like a rota that we did on WhatsApp, so we were all taking it in turns to go and spend time with her. So it didn't all fall on sort of one person's shoulder. And I think that that's really important for you to sit for a minute and go, I know I'm going to need loads of strength, I know I don't have it, what can I do to find it? And it doesn't have to be conscious. Like, I don't think you're ever going to sit there and go, I'm consciously ready to deal with my loved one dying. Like, no one can logically, no matter how elderly they are or how ill they are, you never are quite prepared for it. So I think it's just more of a feeling inside yourself, like, what do I need right now? Am I still like rushing around? Have I still got too much stuff I can shed away from my days to allow me just to have the space to focus on what I'm doing? Like for me, I am like one of those annoying people who likes to meditate. I know it's annoying, but I got into it through this time and I found it really useful. Like in the hospice, I would take like 20 minutes every day to go and do some yoga. Like, I know it's annoying. I know myself even saying it because I'm like, oh, such a cliche, but I did. And I read books. I took loads of books into the hospice with me and I read loads of books. There was a lot of time and I read novels that were just about something totally different. So, but that was helping protect my headspace to deal with the things I was dealing with during the day. So whatever it is for you, like honestly, I understand that mine might be like totally alien to you. Yours might be whatever. Might be to drink 2 bottles of wine, and yes, I do that as well. But as much as you can, just to build up your strength is important, and just help them adjust. Like I think that with my sister, one of the most insightful things she said to me is that one of her friends had said to her, "Are you scared?" And she said, "No one's ever asked me that. No one had ever said to her, 'Are you scared of dying?'" And I wasn't going to ask her that, to be fair. She said she wasn't, but she, you know, we were so close that she would know intuitively the conversations that I would find too hard. And so I was glad that she'd found people that she could talk to things about, that she had a friend who she could talk to about her fears. She had a friend she could talk to particularly about the girls who had lost her own mum when they were little, and that was a conversation that I found really, really hard to have with my sister. So helping them and understanding that they have their needs, and it might be that you kind of go, okay, this would be a good person to chat to, or set up a call with this person, or if you feel strong enough to say, you know, are you scared, or write them an email or something. It's difficult, but somebody needs to be there for them because they're having the biggest adjustment, and for us as their loved one it can be torture, but it's part of it. So fresh grief, when my sister died, the fresh grief is like a feeling that you'll never ever 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 have again. Like, it's like, the way I can describe it if people haven't been through it, and I was thinking this a lot at the time, is it's like love, like in the way that, you know, when you're like in love and it's so intense you can't think about anything else apart from that person, and you're just like, everything else in life just falls away because you've got like tunnel vision on that one person. And it was the same with death. It was like everything else in my life faded away and I could only focus on my sister's died, and the tears were actually painful. So I know that our tears hold hormones and that they're in the tears, and I swear like the tears would sting going down my face like agony, like as if I was crying acid. And I was like, this is such a weird thing. And then other people said to me they'd had the same, and you still sort of get up and do things and go around your routine, and you still have to get up and talk and brush your teeth, and not every day you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I did that every day because I've got children, but then there's this huge fog. So grief fog is absolutely massive. Like, I didn't know what month I'm in. I'm still struggling with what month I'm in. I'm still like, what's going on, what day of the week it is, just unable to grasp. You're not grounded, you know, like your feet aren't on the ground, you're not in the room. You're like, another great analogy I heard about it is like, you're stood on a beach and you're just literally sucked up by a wave and you're thrown right out to the middle of the sea, and you can see your life and it is there on the beach, but you're just out in the middle of the ocean just floundering around and no idea of how you'd ever get back there, and you feel so distant from it. It feels like a movie playing out that you're no longer invited to. You're no longer in that room, and that's a really difficult thing to feel. And I think that's why we feel this sort of that we're losing our mind, or that we're losing our life, or that life has no meaning anymore, or that person. And there's these huge fears and huge we turn in on ourselves as well, you know, and that's a really hard period to get through. And I'm only 5 months in, so I still feel that a lot. But now I would say I'm on a raft. I'm still out at sea, but I'm not drowning. I'm on a raft, and I did end up having to start taking antidepressants. So I was just at the stage where I got this period of it where I got stuck in the room when she was when she died, and I was in that room like mentally all the time, like all the time. I could just feel her, I was just sat with her, I just wanted to be back there, I just was in that room, and it was this horrendous room. And then I started getting angry, and I started thinking, why did this not happen, why did that not happen? I started to look around, I'd see an old person on the street and I would feel anger, like, why are you alive? Like, it is so mean, I know, but it's just because you're so jealous of people, or you're just like, why, and you get this humongous sense of, I just couldn't get out of that room and that feeling for weeks. It was like a movie in my head constantly, and it was torture, and it was horrible, and it was not allowing me to think the lovely things about my sister. So I did start the antidepressants, and I'll do a separate video on them if you're interested. I'm on Zoloft or Sertraline or something it's called. Not loving it, to be fair, but it's definitely helped ease that side of it. I feel like I can move about my day, but everyone has different experiences of it. For me, I'm really struggling with the fatigue of it, because I can just feel like my constant state now is asleep, and it's a struggle to stay awake. And that's why, if you follow me on Instagram, I'd be like, she's constantly out exercising, she's on walks, she's doing dance classes, she's doing weight training, like I'm doing everything, but I need to exercise to counteract the fatigue. It's so odd, like if I don't exercise in the day, I'm asleep, and it's so awful. So that's something I'm really battling with and deciding if I'll continue. But what it has allowed me to do is focus back on the lovely things about my sister. So I have her picture next to my bed, I have her crystals, I sit and spend time with her, I listen to her voice. Like, for me, I can do all of that, and particularly when I'm with her daughters, like, I feel at most peace, because I feel like I'm literally with her, like she is so with them. It's unreal. And I went out with them on the weekend, and we bumped into a friend, and my friend who knew my sister, and she was like, oh my god, she's like, I don't know if it's just because they're so similar to your sister, or just felt your sister was there. And I was like, I feel like that all the time. I feel like if she's anywhere, energetically she's with the girls, but hopefully she's up and having a wonderful time somewhere. But all these conversations I'm saying now, like, I wouldn't have been able to speak like that. And I wonder if that's the antidepressants that have allowed me to not sink into that hole. And I was feeling it, like I could feel it creeping up, and it was literally like, I know people talked about this, and I've never really understood mental health. I've never had depression, never had anxiety, super lucky. I've never dealt with that, no one close to me, like friends, but no one like in my immediate family. And you can feel this loom, and you're like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then one day you're like, oh my God, it's here, and it's just, you're just gone. So, and by gone, I hate when people say things and don't explain what they mean. It's like, just in that your head is like just black, and you're only in that grief, and you're only thinking of that one thing, and you can't think about anything else again. And then that might send you into physical symptoms of like crying a lot, feeling super angry, feeling super tired, feeling very impatient, like you can't cope with your day, you don't want to go anywhere. And on those days you just have to embrace it, to be fair. Sorry, I've been talking for longer than I wanted, but funeral planning, I've planned the funeral and organised the funeral, made all the artwork and literature and the signs and the flowers and the food. And it's massive. It's like organising a wedding, because you've got like a humongous amount of guests. And I think we thought we had about 120 people coming, and I think we had about 280 come. And I wondered, I think I might do a separate video about funeral planning with my sister's funeral director, if she's happy to come on the channel, because she was lovely. We had a really young funeral director who was 27, and I think that's my biggest tip for the funeral is to, I didn't really understand what a funeral director was, and basically when your loved one dies, they'll get taken to the funeral directors, and they will actually take care of their body, and then they will work with you to organise the funeral. And there's so many options, and I was lucky that I discussed it all with my sister, as I said. But finding the person that matches you and matches your loved one. So I didn't want an older man, because I wanted somebody who felt like my sister. So we had this young girl who looked like my sister. She's just so funny. And as soon as I met her, I found her online, and I researched a lot of great people, and I swear she was just sent to me, like, I opened it, she's got a top review, I rang the place, she answered the phone immediately, and it was like a bank holiday weekend, it was King Charles, whatever, coronation, and immediately she was just like, amazing. She spends so much time with the girls, she spends so much time with my mum and dad, we still text all the time, she's at the end of the phone when I need her, and it's a massive support that you don't realise you're going to get. So picking somebody who you personally like is really, really important, and who you think they would like, because she really got my sister. And when we were talking about songs, she was like, yes. And I've chose the song Brave by Ella Henderson, which was me and my sister's song, for the last bit. And the funeral director was like, yes, I saw her live at this festival. And I was like, oh my God, I was at the same festival, and it would only been less than a year before. And we were literally stood like right next to the funeral director, not knowing, which is so crazy. Because then we looked at the videos and she was like, yeah, I was just a few bit behind you. Me and my sister were there dancing. So when you find that support, it changes your whole experience of it. And it should be, I don't know, I've never heard people talk about funerals as much as just like, oh, it just happens and you just go through it. Even I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and for me that was the opposite. I was like, no way, like my sister's gonna have the most bespoke, special, individual funeral that's my sister, because of who she was and how particular she was about things as well. If you knew her, you know how particular she was about stuff. Like the plates had to be the perfect colour that she liked, and you know, the glasses had to be perfect, like everything. I wanted it to be perfect, I wanted it to be her. So I put so much effort into it, and I did it. And at the end of doing it, I remember I finished working on it and it was really late, like maybe 1 in the morning, and I felt broken. And I actually rang the Samaritans, and my friend works for the Samaritans, and she said it's one of the #1 calls they get is for grief. And I rang and I was like, I just don't know what to do. I've just finished planning my sister's funeral and it just feels so surreal, and I feel so hysterical, like I was hysterical. And she really wasn't that helpful, which isn't a very good advert for the Samaritans, because I'm sure there's some brilliant people, but I felt with her, she was just kind of like, oh, it sounds like it's hard for you. And I wanted somebody to be like, this is awful. Like, I'm outraged that your sister died and you've had to do this. Like, this is not what you deserve. Like, and I wanted somebody to be angry for me, like to shout and yell for me. And obviously that's probably not what the Samaritan's gonna do, but sometimes it's just like finding that match for your energy at the time. But you know, I'm telling you, because sometimes I think it seems like, you know, I'm carrying on, but you know, I have had these, you know, I've had the breakdown, I've had to run away from the family, I'm on the antidepressants, I've been on the phone to the Samaritans, you know, I haven't done talk therapy yet, just because for me talk therapy I haven't found super useful in the past, and I feel like for me maybe a bereavement group is going to be better. I would love any experience of bereavement groups below, because I just feel like that might be more me. And with me, I do a lot more soul searching, and I do like energy healing and things like that for me. Let's not get into that can of worms. All in all, I don't know if this has been useful. I hope just by somebody talking about it has been helpful. Just, you know, my words might mean nothing, but just knowing that somebody else is grieving and coping well. You know, I'm coping. I'm not coping brilliantly by any stretch. Like the people nearest to me will know that. You know, I've had friends had to come and drag me off the sofa when I'm just lying there. Just my friends like, come on, I'm coming, we're gonna go for a walk. You know, I've had terrible breakdowns at home, and I really struggle, but I'm really trying. I'm really, 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 really trying to not put pressure on myself to get better quicker, but to try to do myself proud, but trying to, I don't want to say like do myself proud, do her proud, live my best life, any of that stuff. I'm just trying not to fall apart. Like the biggest scare for me is that I honestly can't imagine my future. Like I can't imagine myself in a year from now. I can't imagine it. And if I feel like it's the same as I feel now, that terrifies me. And that really scares me. So all I know is I want to avoid that, because I can't be in this place in a year's time, in terms of feeling this way constantly. I can't be in that place, so I need to just keep trying different things, and that's what I'm doing. I'm showing up to everything, and doing that just to survive in a way. That wasn't a very good sum up at the end, but lots and lots of love to you all. If you've watched this far, please say hello below. You can follow me on Instagram as well, where I do share some grief quotes, and I will link in the description the books that I've loved and the podcasts that I've loved and the TV shows that I've loved that have really, really helped me. Bye guys.